It begins, as many stories of midlife do, in the dark. Not dramatic darkness, not the kind that begs for sirens or rescue, but the quiet domestic dark of 2:47 a.m., the hour when the refrigerator hum becomes a metronome and the mind turns into a newsroom breaking grim headlines about tomorrow's fatigue. You know these hours. You have counted them. You have rehearsed tomorrow's obligations while staring at the faint outline of curtains. You have bartered with your own body. 5 hours will do, 4 will be enough, 3 can be survived. Morning arrives like a verdict, and a life built on experience and responsibility is held together with coffee, grit, and the hope that tonight will be different. It rarely is. For millions of adults in their mid-30s through their 70s, insomnia is not a quirk. It is an organizing principle. It shapes moods, sharpens tempers, blunts memory, and leaves the nervous system running hot, as though the brain has been issued a permanent, all-hands-on-deck alert. People are not failing to sleep because they are undisciplined, weak, or lazy. They are failing to sleep because the body's internal conversation between hormones, neurotransmitters, and nerves has fallen out of tune. When that orchestra is out of time, the conductor can wave the baton all night, and nothing truly settles. Consider the texture of an ordinary night gone wrong. The clock flips to bedtime. Lamps dim. Screens go dark. A room is made cool and quiet. A promise hangs in the air. You will enter the sensibly named restorative sleep and wake into a day that feels trustworthy. Instead, the mind begins to curate the museum of everything, the grocery list, the sharp comment you wish you had answered differently 3 years ago, the mortgage, the new ache in your hip, the whisper that maybe something is wrong with you. The chest tightens, the jaw clenches, a wave of alertness rises uninvited. It is a curious injustice. Sensible adults who manage families, careers, and crises cannot persuade their own bodies to do what every child does without instruction. The science for why this happens is not a mystery, but it is often explained in a way that sounds like a weather report in a foreign language, technically precise and practically useless. What matters is grasping the picture. The human sleep system is not a light switch. It is a set of dials. One dial controls the circadian rhythm, the day-night timing signal that is set by light, habits, and routine. Another dial governs arousal, the stress chemistry that decides whether you are ready to act. A third dial, quieter but crucial, supplies the raw materials the brain uses to slow itself down, molecules that tell neurons to speak more softly and less often. When any one of these dials is stuck, the others strain to compensate. Many people push on the obvious dials: earlier bedtime, darker room, fewer screens. Those can help. But there is a deeper dial, and it is the one we will turn together in this investigation. This is a practical story told with the cadence of a newsroom and the seriousness of a clinic, because the subject deserves both. It asks a straightforward question with profound consequences. Is there a simple, overlooked nutrient, call it a quiet vitamin, that turns down the volume of the nervous system and lets sleep happen the way breathing happens, naturally and reliably? The answer, put carefully, is that there is solid biological reason to think so, and what follows will show you why. We will not rely on miracle language or easy promises. You have heard enough of those. We will rely on how the brain actually works, what happens to that machinery as adults move through their 40s, 50s, and 60s, and how resupplying the brain with the right input can change the output. Less midnight static, more deep, stable rest. If the name Jordan Peterson in the title caught your attention, it is because his public conversations have repeatedly underlined a principle that applies as much to sleep as to life. Order is not a luxury. It is a precondition for sanity. Where chaos dominates, be it in a room, a calendar, or a mind, suffering grows. In the context of the nervous system, order has a technical meaning. It is the balance between excitation and inhibition, between the parts of the brain that accelerate and the parts that break. Well-rested people are not simply lucky. They are running a nervous system in which the braking system is intact. Poor sleepers, particularly in midlife and later, are often driving with thin brake pads, pressing harder and harder to get the same response. The result is heat, noise, and unpredictable handling in the curves of stress. To see this clearly, step into a small, ordinary apartment on a weeknight. Thomas is 54, decent at his job, and better at being a father than he thinks. He falls asleep quickly, like someone jumping on a bus they have nearly missed. and then wakes at 3 a.m. As if a fire alarm has chirped in the distance. The room is quiet. His heart is not. He has tried the melatonin, the teas, the podcasts that promise delta waves. He has tried the stoic advice to accept what is. Yet around lunch, he feels a glass wall between himself and the day, and by evening, he fears the repeat. On the other side of town, Anna, 62, is tenderly pragmatic. She prepares her room, as if preparing a guest room for a friend she loves. Still, sleep drifts toward her and then drifts away like a taxi that slows but never stops. She does not want heavy sedatives that leave her fogged. She wants her life back as it was when closing her eyes was enough. What links Thomas and Anna is not personality, it is physiology. Aging, even the kind we earn by living well, alters the body's chemistry. The stress hormone that wakes us in the morning can run high into the evening. The light that hits our eyes at wrong times can shift the rhythm that tells the brain it's safe to power down. And the nutrient status of the nervous system changes. Call it the slow leak nobody notices. A gradual decline in one vitamin's availability that is central to building the very neurotransmitters that let the brain say, calm down, not now, rest. In youth, the leak hardly matters. The system is robust, and the buffet of daily life covers deficiencies by accident. In midlife, the margin shrinks. A gap that harmfully small can be the difference between a body that lets go and a body that clings to alertness as though it were duty. This is where precision matters, and where the story turns from frustration to agency. The premise is not that a single capsule will rewrite a complicated life. The premise is that the brain is a chemical organ that obeys its inputs. If you supply it with the molecules it needs to manufacture the neurotransmitters that slow electrical chatter, the probability of sleep increases. If you do not, all the good intentions in the world will meet a wall. Adults who have felt wired and tired know this in their bones. They crave an off-ramp and keep finding a roundabout. The quiet vitamin we will discuss later is not a sedative. It is raw material and cofactor, a humble worker in the factory that produces calm. When it is missing, the assembly line runs short. When it is restored, output improves. That is not magic. That is logistics. The tone of what follows will be dispassionate where hype is common, and compassionate where shame too often creeps in. If you have spent hours reading contradictory advice and have come to distrust clear statements, that is understandable. Yet clarity is not the enemy of nuance. Clarity is what lets us separate what must change now from what can improve gradually. The plan ahead is simple in structure and deep in detail. First, we will describe what sleeplessness actually does to the body you live in, heart, immune system, mood, memory, so you can see why solving this is not optional. Then, we will map how the nervous system normally lands the plane each night, from light hitting the retina to signals in the brainstem and cortex. Only then will we open the crate and show you the vitamin itself, explain how it interacts with the brain's chemistry, and show where it shows up in real food and, when necessary, in careful supplementation. Finally, we will put it all into a daily plan that respects age, medications, and real life. It is fair to ask, at the outset, how a single nutritional factor could matter so much in a problem that seems woven from stress, screens, and schedules. The honest answer is that it does not explain everything, and we will not pretend it does. But there is a difference between a cause and a choke point. A cause is one of many contributors. A choke point is a narrow passage through which everything else must pass. For the brain to shift from vigilance to rest, it must cross a biochemical bridge. If the material for that bridge is scarce, all the other efforts, the tidy room, the evening walk, the mindful breathing, face a bottleneck. You have probably sensed this without having language for it, the intuition that you are doing everything right, and yet nothing unlocks. Naming the bottleneck is powerful because it grants leverage. Replace the missing piece, and a system can begin working the way it was designed to work. Skepticism is healthy here. Every seasoned adult has seen fads come and go, each promising to banish a common human struggle with a simple hack. The claim on the table today is humbler and more testable. A particular vitamin plays a central role in building and regulating the chemical brakes of the nervous system. Those brakes weaken when intake is inadequate or absorption is impaired. Adults from 35 to 70 are particularly vulnerable to that shortfall. Correcting it, alongside sensible sleep hygiene, often leads to deeper, steadier sleep. These are statements about mechanism, not marketing. And they point to actions you can take without surrendering your agency to a pharmaceutical roll of the dice or to superstition. Imagine for a moment a week from now that is not ruled by fatigue. Picture what it would mean to wake before your alarm, not because panic kicked you out of bed, but because sleep has done its quiet repair and your mind is ready to meet the day. Mood stabilizes. Patience returns. The nuisances you cannot change shrink back to proper size. This is not a sales pitch. It is what happens when a human nervous system is allowed to reset on schedule. If, as Jordan Peterson often reminds, the path out of chaos is paved with small, correct acts repeated consistently, then recalibrating your sleep is one of those acts, and replacing what is missing is one of the simplest places to start. We will proceed with care. We will not name the vitamin just yet because, as with any good story, the reveal matters only if the groundwork has been laid. You will see precisely why it helps, how to obtain it from foods you recognize, when supplementation is reasonable, what doses are commonly used by clinicians, and how to avoid the traps that make people assume, it didn't work for me. You will also learn how this nutrient interlocks with light exposure, meal timing, stress rituals, and the evening behaviors that either nudge the nervous system toward silence or goad it into another night of surveillance. Before we step into the machinery of sleep, take a breath and suspend the two reflexes that have likely grown around this topic: cynicism and self-blame. Cynicism says nothing will work. Self-blame says it is your fault. Neither is true. Bodies respond to inputs. Brains obey chemistry. And most people who cannot sleep are not stubbornly defying common sense. They are running low on the very materials that make calm possible. Our job now is to explain, with the precision of a lab and the clarity of a front-page story, how to restore what has been missing so nights become reliable again and days feel like days. When we speak about sleeplessness, it is easy to picture it as merely an annoyance. Dark circles, a short fuse, an extra cup of coffee. But the truth is sharper, and science has been shouting it for years. Chronic insomnia is not cosmetic, it is corrosive. The human body is a system designed to repair itself at night. Without that repair, wear and tear accumulate in silence. Cortisol, the hormone of vigilance, lingers too long in the bloodstream. It keeps the heart rate elevated, squeezes blood vessels, and slowly pushes blood pressure higher. In the short term, this feels like restlessness. In the long term, it carves pathways toward hypertension and cardiovascular strain. That tired chest thump you feel at 3 a.m. is not imaginary. It is biology rehearsing trouble. The immune system tells a parallel story. Sleep is when immune cells learn and recalibrate, scanning for invaders, storing memory of past threats, and repairing damaged tissue. Strip away that sleep, and the immune system stutters. A simple cold lingers. Inflammation markers climb, which is a clinical way of saying the body begins to mistake itself for an enemy. For older adults, already carrying the weight of decades, this immune confusion translates into aches, longer recoveries, and higher vulnerability to chronic diseases. Add to this the brain's vulnerability. During deep sleep, waste products like beta amyloid are flushed from the nervous system. Without that rinse, plaques can accumulate, memory falters, and attention frays. What we call senior moments are often not aging alone, but exhaustion, masquerading as inevitability. On the psychological front, the cost is profound. Imagine a city where the garbage is never collected. That is the brain deprived of restorative sleep. Emotions pile up unprocessed. Anxiety sharpens because the amygdala, the brain's alarm bell, becomes hyper-reactive. Depression deepens because serotonin pathways are strained. Irritability becomes the daily soundtrack. Adults in their 50s and 60s often dismiss this as just stress or just age, but under a microscope, it is the mechanical result of nights cut short. And yet, here lies the cruel paradox. The very stress and low mood produced by insomnia feed back into the system, making the next night even harder. A vicious circle is established, spinning quietly, stealing vitality year after year. If you see yourself in these lines, you are not alone. These are not isolated anecdotes. They are epidemiological realities, confirmed in study after study, reported in sober journals rather than glossy magazines. The pattern is consistent. Sleep deprivation fuels systemic breakdown, and systemic breakdown fuels further sleep deprivation. For people aged 35 to 70, this is not academic. It is daily life. The numbers suggest that more than 1 in 3 adults in this range lives with some degree of persistent insomnia. The question is not whether sleeplessness matters. The question is whether you are willing to accept it as permanent. If sleeplessness corrodes, how does sleep normally restore? What is the architecture of a night of rest, and where does it fail when the nervous system is starved of what it needs? To answer, we need to map the choreography that happens every evening in a healthy body. Light dims, and the eyes deliver a signal to the suprachiasmatic nucleus, the small cluster of neurons in the hypothalamus that keeps time. This signal says, "The day is closing." In response, the pineal gland releases melatonin, not as a sedative but as a clock signal, whispering to tissues across the body that night has arrived. Muscles prepare for repair, the immune system readies its watch, and the brain begins its descent into waves. Light sleep, deeper sleep, rapid eye movement cycles. Each stage has a job, from memory consolidation to emotional regulation to physical healing. But melatonin alone does not build sleep. It is the invitation, not the event. For the nervous system to downshift, inhibitory neurotransmitters must rise. Chief among them is GABA, gamma-aminobutyric acid, the chemical brake pedal of the brain. When GABA binds to receptors, neurons fire less often. The chatter of the cortex dims. The vigilance of the amygdala eases. The body, finally, exhales. Alongside GABA, serotonin plays its part, not only stabilizing mood, but feeding into the production of melatonin itself. These chemicals are the language of calm, and without them, the invitation to sleep is issued, but not accepted. The brain remains in a state of readiness, as if danger might still be at the door. Now consider what happens in midlife. The body's ability to produce these neurotransmitters depends on raw materials, vitamins, minerals, amino acids, that must arrive through diet. In youth, the margins are wide. Deficiencies are rare or masked. By 40, 50, or 60, absorption is less efficient, diets narrow, and stresses mount. The result is a body that issues the melatonin signal but cannot supply enough of the neurotransmitters to cross the bridge into genuine rest. You lie in bed, eyes closed, yet the nervous system hums, as though idling at a stoplight. It is not a failure of willpower, it is a shortage of tools. This is where the idea of a quiet vitamin becomes urgent. Without it, the system remains unbalanced. With it, the brain can build what it needs to break, to pause, to let go. To see this is to recognize that sleep is not magic and insomnia is not mystery. They are the outcome of chemistry running smoothly or poorly. They are order or chaos. And as Jordan Peterson has argued in other contexts, order is achieved not by one grand gesture, but by restoring what is missing piece by piece until the system can function. In the case of sleep, that means more than dark rooms and fewer screens. It means supplying the nervous system with the precise nutrient that allows the machinery of calm to do its work. In the chapters ahead, that nutrient will be named, examined, and made practical. For now, what matters is seeing that sleeplessness is not personal weakness. It is the predictable result of a nervous system deprived of its basic tools. The microscope reveals how intricate the human nervous system is, a lattice of electrical impulses and chemical messengers, firing and pausing in perfect rhythm when health is intact. The mirror reflects what happens when that rhythm is broken, a face lined with exhaustion, eyes dulled by fatigue, and a mind that cannot find silence. To understand why one vitamin can make the difference between chaos and calm, we must first see the nervous system not as an abstract diagram, but as the living command center it is. At its core, the nervous system is about balance, between stimulation and inhibition, between acceleration and braking. Every thought, every movement, every emotion relies on this duality. If neurons fired without pause, the brain would be a storm of static. If inhibition dominated unchecked, the brain would sink into silence, unable to act. Sleep occurs when inhibition is allowed to rise just enough to mute the chatter without extinguishing the flame. It is this delicate balance that sustains rest, and it is this balance that falters when the raw ingredients of inhibitory neurotransmitters run scarce. The central players in this drama are neurotransmitters, those small molecules that act as messages between nerve cells. Glutamate is the most abundant excitatory neurotransmitter. It accelerates, it pushes forward, it readies the system for action. GABA is the primary inhibitory neurotransmitter. It slows, it restrains, it provides the braking force that lets the nervous system decelerate. For sleep to occur naturally, glutamate must yield and GABA must rise. Yet GABA is not conjured from thin air. It is synthesized from glutamate, and that conversion requires specific enzymes, cofactors, and vitamins. Remove or reduce any one of these, and the pathway weakens. It is like trying to bake bread without yeast. The ingredients are present, but the essential catalyst is missing, and the result does not rise. This is why the decline in certain vitamins matters so profoundly after midlife. As adults age, absorption from food decreases, digestive efficiency wanes, and chronic stress depletes reserves more quickly. At the same time, the demand for inhibition grows stronger because stressors accumulate: caregiving, financial pressure, physical aches, social losses. The nervous system is asked to brake harder and longer with fewer supplies. The outcome is predictable. The brain hovers in a semi-alert state, too wired to sleep deeply, too tired to function fully. The person experiencing this feels trapped, yet the biology is straightforward. What is missing is not willpower, but building blocks. The right vitamin, supplied consistently, can restore the nervous system's ability to generate GABA and serotonin, tilting the balance back toward calm. The quiet vitamin is not an exotic compound harvested from a remote forest. It is simple, affordable, and well documented. Vitamin B6, known in clinical circles as pyridoxine. This vitamin is a coenzyme, meaning it does not act alone but enables key enzymes to do their work. One of its most critical roles is in the synthesis of neurotransmitters. Without B6, the body cannot efficiently convert tryptophan into serotonin, the mood stabilizer that also feeds into melatonin, the hormone of night. Without B6, the transformation of glutamate into GABA is impaired, leaving the brain overstimulated. Without B6, the orchestra of calming signals plays out of tune, and the nervous system remains restless. Research supports this. Studies tracking adults with insomnia often find lower levels of B6 compared to controls. Clinical trials show that supplementation improves sleep quality, not by sedating but by facilitating the body's natural chemistry. This is a crucial distinction. Sedatives force the nervous system into submission, often leaving grogginess and dependency. Vitamin B6, by contrast, restores the system's inherent ability to downshift. It is the difference between pulling a car's emergency brake and simply repairing the normal brakes. The former halts motion abruptly but unsafely. The latter restores control. In practical terms, B6 can be obtained from common foods: poultry, fish, bananas, potatoes, chickpeas. Yet dietary intake often falls short, especially in older adults whose absorption is diminished or whose medications interfere with metabolism. For many, supplementation becomes not luxury, but necessity. Typical doses used in clinical practice range from modest daily amounts to therapeutic levels under medical supervision. Safety matters. Too much B6 can cause nerve issues over time, but within proper limits, it is both effective and accessible. What makes this story compelling is not only the science but the possibility it holds for ordinary people. Imagine Thomas, the 54-year-old who wakes at 3 each night. With consistent B6 intake, his brain is able to synthesize more GABA. Over weeks, the pattern shifts. The nocturnal awakenings shrink, then disappear. He does not feel drugged. He feels normal. Imagine Anna, the 62-year-old whose nights drift away. With improved serotonin production, her melatonin rhythm stabilizes. Sleep begins to arrive reliably again, not as a favor, but as a function of chemistry restored. These are not miracles. They are outcomes of systems given what they need to work. The night, so often feared by those who cannot find rest, is not meant to be an enemy. It is designed by nature as the most profound medicine we have. Yet, in the modern age, many of us have forgotten how to surrender to it. When one finally recognizes that sleep is not merely the absence of wakefulness, but the active work of the body repairing itself, everything changes. Imagine a city at night. The traffic stops, but inside the buildings, cleaners move swiftly, restoring order so that everything functions again the next day. That is exactly what happens inside the human brain and body when we sleep. Hormones adjust, Damaged cells are replaced, memories are carefully filed, and the nervous system is recalibrated. Without this process, the body begins to collapse silently, first with irritability, then with cognitive decline, then with the very breakdown of the organs that keep us alive. The tragedy is that millions walk this path unknowingly, believing it is normal to age poorly, when in reality, they are aging in accelerated chaos due to the deprivation of restorative sleep. But here lies the hope. Unlike diseases that strike uninvited, sleep is something we can reclaim. We can shape the conditions that allow it to flourish again. The posture of the body, the quieting of the mind, the balance of minerals and vitamins, the dimming of lights before bed, all are choices. They do not cost fortunes. They do not require complex machines. They simply require awareness and consistency. If you begin today, even with the smallest change, you will be astonished by how your nights transform. The body responds quickly because it was always waiting for you to return to its natural rhythm. It is like a plant deprived of water. Once watered, it springs back to life almost miraculously. And to everyone listening now, if this message has resonated with you, I invite you to stay connected with us. Subscribe to this channel, leave your comment sharing the city and country where you are watching from, so that I can send you a warm greeting directly. This community exists to give voice and clarity to what so many people suffer silently. By sharing your presence, you not only receive knowledge, but you help others feel they are not alone in this struggle. As we reach the end of this journey, let us reflect on what we have uncovered together. The silent epidemic of sleeplessness is not merely a personal inconvenience, it is a societal crisis. Behind every tired face in the morning is a story. A mother who cannot concentrate because her body is drained, a worker who risks mistakes that could cost lives, an elderly person whose memory fades faster because their brain has not been restored at night. And yet, the solution does not lie in an endless supply of pills, nor in surrendering to despair. The solution lies in knowledge, discipline, and respect for the body's innate wisdom. The human nervous system, so intricate and delicate, requires care. When we allow stress to rule our nights, when we fill our bodies with stimulants, when we neglect the simple rituals that signal the brain it is time to rest, we pay the price. But when we realign with the truth, that night is not for struggle but for surrender, then the transformation is profound. You wake lighter, more present, more resilient. Your mind sharpens, your body begins to heal, and most importantly, the fear of night disappears, replaced by gratitude for the sanctuary it provides. This is the message I want to leave with you today. If you are battling with sleepless nights, know this: your body has not betrayed you. It is simply signaling that it needs balance again, and balance is within reach. If you listen, if you act, if you choose, tonight can be different, tomorrow can be brighter. Let this knowledge be your turning point. And as you close your eyes at the end of this day, remember, the silence of the night is not empty. It is filled with the sacred work of renewal. Trust it, and it will give you back the life you thought you lost.